So this is how far we've gotten so far in transferring this drawing to this mat board. I've already started doing the pastel on it, but I wanted to show you the process and the best way to get the best results. From this handout that I downloaded from the web, from juliankunstler.com, you can see the basic layout of the landscape, and then there's a close-up. Let me get a close-up of this. After we practiced our patterns, here's some samples of patterns, and this is the pattern sheet that I printed out for the students. There's actually two of them. They're similar, very complex patterns, but most of them are still based on a grid. You can see this one and this one, that one and this one. They're all still based on a grid for the most part, especially that one and ones like this. So students were asked to do these patterns, practice them on a practice sheet, 48 distinct patterns. Then they went online and researched and found at least 3 photographs of landscapes, and then redrew it from their sketch folder into a sheet of paper and then taped it to this mat board. And then, as you can see, this is a red pen. The only thing that was required on this was to do a basic landscape. You can see some mountains here. In this one, there's actually, it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's a tree right here, like a cypress tree silhouette. They're all silhouettes. The drawings are intended to be basic in nature and mostly simple shapes overlapping. So you can even see where the tree is overlapped by the mountain behind it. So, after meticulously drawing out all of these patterns, remembering that you have to press down pretty hard so that on this, I'm not sure if you can see it, you can sort of see the patterns in here, but they're kind of difficult to see unless you angle the board and start seeing it. The idea is that each one of these separate areas are going to be a separate color. We're not so keen on necessarily staying completely in the lines. In fact, some of the overlap makes for some cool effects. We're using Oil Pastel, which is a messy oil-based crayon. And basically, looking at the patterns, for instance here, the idea is to gently, excuse me, it's my bell. The idea is to gently add color. Choose green over here. Add color gently to the surface, and it starts to bring up. See if I can zoom in. Oh, zoom doesn't work on here. Okay. I'm just gently bringing up the areas that have been depressed down into this mat board, and then I'm going to go back over it and try and get as close as possible to areas like this one. You can kind of see, I can see from here where I need to go. So for instance, this logo, this is my logo. Those of you who have seen it before, it's the letter J with an angel wing on it and a halo. So I call it my Jumping for Joy angel, but it's a logo because it's a J wing. A little bit of humor there. Very little, some people might say. So I'm going to try and follow this line as much as possible. And it looks like I've already gone over, and I'm actually in 2 different areas. This one should be a different color. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But I'm going to take this one all the way up to here, right next to my fingerprint pattern. And this pattern actually goes up and over, touches another green there. and then it's going to come down. Again, if you angle it, you can kind of see where it's going. I'm going to very gently add this, emphasis on gently, add this color here. And since there's two greens next to each other, and I don't necessarily want two greens next to each other, I'm actually going to mix this one, and this is one of the beauties of Oil Pastel. So I've put a light layer of green on there. Now I'm going to go right over the top of it with this yellow. And again, these oil pastels are very messy, and this bucket of oil pastels that I inherited from the previous art teacher here, the colors are very messy because they've been stored in a bucket, so you can see all of the other oil that's gotten on each other. So I'm going to go right over the top of this green, and I'm going to press just slightly harder. But I want to emphasize again that the color is meant to be lightly added and then smudged with your finger or with a Kleenex or with a paper towel. So notice you can kind of see, let me pull this up to the camera. You can kind of see now where that's starting to come in. There's a little bit of modeling going on here where the darker green is mixing with the yellow. So I'm going to actually run my finger right along the edge here and start smudging this color. And it looks as though I missed some of the color over here underneath. But actually, I take that back. This is actually part of this one, so I'm going to leave that alone for now. So again, I'm not overly concerned with accuracy here, as long as it stays kind of inside the lines, but the mixture of things from one line to the next actually makes some pretty cool blends. So the intention is kind of like, if you've ever heard of a temple rubbing. Temple rubbings are done in obviously temples all over the world where there are ornate, decorative designs chiseled into the temples, and people will take large sheets of normally newsprint with them because it's cheap and easy to transport, and they'll put the paper on top of it, and then they'll take a crayon and rub it over the top of it to get samples of temples. So I'm going to change this one up pretty radically here. Let me get my orange. This one down here I'm going to mix again kind of slightly, modeling it next to here so I can kind of follow the line here. It starts off down here, and you can just, as you see the design revealing itself, you can follow it around. And I'm just going to follow this tree shape around. This is the bottom of the cypress tree. Right up next to this green and overlapping this green, the idea is to isolate the different patterns with different colors. So again, I'm just going to rub right on the edge, smudge it a bit. I don't want to press too hard because I want to leave the white areas exposed. If you push too hard either with the oil pastel or with your finger, it actually will rub out the pattern, and we want to keep the pattern in there as much as possible. So I'm rubbing somewhat vigorously but lightly so as to keep the patterns visible. So when this gets done, you can kind of see what I've done so far. It's going to look like a piece of abstract art based on all of these areas of a landscape. And again, my landscape started off looking something like this, although with different features. I got the sun up in the top, I got the sky up here with the clouds in front of it. Everything's overlapping. so that it becomes what looks like an abstract. But then as you work the color in, you can start to model different aspects of it. So this is probably 30% done, I'm guessing. So far I've spent about 2.5, 3 hours drawing all of these patterns meticulously in here on top of here. I've spent so far about an hour doing this. So this is going to end up being about a 2-week assignment unless it's rushed. So, and again, this is a middle school assignment. It could probably be done in a high school as well, but I'm currently working in a middle school, so I'm calling this the abstract patterned landscape, and I'll show you photos of it when I'm finished with it.